My journey with public speaking, I was petrified of public speaking. I hated it. I was always that quiet person in the room. I couldn't wait to leave. I've run out of networking events. I hated any type of social gathering. But the problem was in the corporate world, and I was in the corporate world for almost 10 years, you had to do it. There was just no and ifs or buts. So I knew that if I wanted to move up the corporate ladder, if I wanted my career to excel, I had to overcome the fear of public speaking, get better at presentations, all this stuff. So I read a lot of books, hired a coach, took a lot of courses, and it took me a long, long time. But when I did get much better at it, what I noticed was my career was progressing faster and faster.
Hello, and welcome to episode 194 of the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts and strategies for success. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we'll air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform, leave a review or a rating. That would mean a lot to me and help others find the show. Tell a friend about the podcast and help get the word out there that introversion is a beautiful thing. Maria Malik is an executive speaking coach specializing in helping introverted leaders gain executive presence. With a track record of empowering over 200 leaders, Maria equips them to speak assertively, command attention, and impress with their delivery, enabling them to project confidence and lead with impact. All right. Well, welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, Maria. Maria, it's so good to have you on today.
Thank you for having me, David. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're going to get into the work you do as an executive coach for speaking, public speaking, especially for introverts. And I really have been enjoying your content on LinkedIn, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Me too.
So, Maria, let's start at the beginning. So, tell us about your journey as an introvert to now being a public speaking coach for other introverts.
Yeah, so I was an introvert my whole life. I had no idea. I think it took me a long time to figure it out. But when I did, I was like, oh, okay, so nothing's wrong with me. This is actually pretty normal. Almost 50% of the population is introverted. So it made sense. My journey with public speaking, I was petrified of public speaking. I hated it. I was always that quiet person in the room. I couldn't wait to leave. I've run out of networking events. I hated any type of social gathering. But the problem was in the corporate world, and I was in the corporate world for almost 10 years, you had to do it. There was just no and ifs or buts. So I knew that if I wanted to move up the corporate ladder, if I wanted my career to excel, I had to overcome the fear of public speaking, get better at presentations, all this stuff. So I read a lot of books, hired a coach, took a lot of courses, and it took me a long, long time. But when I did get much better at it, what I noticed was my career was progressing faster and faster. That anxiety, the nervousness, everything was getting minimized. And on the other side, I started to really enjoy going to meetings because I now knew what to do, what to say. I enjoyed doing presentations. So one thing that I felt like was lacking when I was trying to get better was the fact that most public speakers were all extroverts. So I was like, hey, why are we not seeing more and more introverts out there? So I kind of started helping other people just one-on-one. It started with colleagues, started with friends. And then eventually I thought, why not take this something that I could teach a lot of people? So that's how I kind of got into it. And now I'm almost 4.5, 5 years in, and I haven't looked back. So that's kind of my journey with public speaking and how I got into teaching other people.
Awesome. Awesome. And you're definitely not the first person on this show that, and myself included, like as an introvert, we felt like something was wrong. And that's the message of this show is no, actually, you're brilliant. You just got to learn about introversion and how to embrace it. So when did you learn the term introvert and did you have to embrace your introversion?
I think it was during university. So I think I was probably maybe 23, maybe 22 or something, 22, 23. And that's when I noticed like everyone was so much more talkative. And I was like, why am I always the quiet one? And someone I think actually said to me, hey, you're an introvert. And I was like, what's that? Like I had no idea what that was. So I think, as one does, I went home and I Googled what is an introvert. And that's when everything kind of clicked. I was like, oh my God, yes, that's me, that's me, that's me. So that's how I was like, wow, this is a thing. Like, I'm not crazy. I'm not someone that, like just doesn't belong. I just navigate through the world differently and I act and behave differently based off of my personality. So it was refreshing in a way to know that it's something normal.
Yeah. Was there, what do you consider a strength that you have because you're an introvert?
Many. I have so many. And this is what I really try to tell other people too. Most people, they think that you have to be more extroverted. You have to do this, you have to do that. But the thing is, as an introvert, some of the strengths that I personally have, and I know most introverts have, number one, I think I'm very good at listening and understanding. So introverts in general, like we listen very well, we process things, and then we speak. So the substance of our message and the substance of what we say, I think weighs a lot heavier than someone that just thinks on their feet and just boom, boom, boom gives you an answer. I think that's number one. I think the second thing is I'm very good at observing from the sidelines before I do anything. So even when I started LinkedIn, I think there was like a good few months where I was just like, what's everyone else doing? How are they doing it? Oh, this is doing well. That's not doing too good. Okay. So this is what people like. So I think observation and just sitting there in silence and looking and observing before you take action. I think that is definitely a strength that I have. I think another one is that introverts, I think there's a misconception that people think you have to be speaking a lot. You have to be the loudest in the room. I think another strength that I have is that when I do speak, because it's of substance and because I don't speak as often, that when I do speak, people do tend to turn around and listen and pay more attention because they know, okay, Maria doesn't speak as much, but when she does, it's always really good. So I think that's definitely a strength as well. So these are some of the things. And like I said, there's a million more, but these are the ones that really stand out to me.
Yeah. And I think that was one of my biggest ahas in gaining confidence as an introvert is that we do think and then speak. And in fact, that's the name of it's a longer story, but that's the where the Quiet and Strong podcast came from because somebody said something like that to me, like you're not speaking all the time, but you've really thought through your answers. And when you speak, people listen,
Mhm.
so, people were learning, hey, when Marina speaks, it's going to be gold because she's been, thinking about it. And that was probably one of the biggest ahas for me is that, extroverts process out loud most of the time, and we're thinking and we're sharing what we think is most important. And it's valuable because it's well thought through. But, and the other thing was, I figured out, oh, I am never going to talk as much as my extrovert friend, and I used to probably try to be more like an extrovert, but now it's like just be proud of your introverted self. And I don't call any activities extroverted. I just say, I love giving public speeches, but I'm going to prepare my extroverted or extroverted. I'm going to prepare my introverted way, and I'm going to make sure that, I manage my energy and that type of thing. But I love it, but it doesn't make me an extrovert, right?
Exactly.
So let's get into speaking. What makes a good speech? And of course, and when we're talking about it, you were talking about how you were learning these things in the workplace. So it's not always getting up in front of many people. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's just giving those presentations in a work setting. There's lots of ways that we're speaking in public.
Yes. So I think the question is what makes a great speech or a great presentation? So to me, what makes a good speech or presentation is when you deliver your message effectively and concisely. I think especially in today's world, everyone is busy. No one wants to be there for an hour if you don't have to be. If that same message could be delivered in half an hour, I would rather get that message in half an hour. I would rather deliver it in half an hour. So if you can effectively deliver your message, your audience understands what you're trying to say, they take away something from it. They take the value from it. They understand the value and they remember it. I think a great speech and presentation is always if someone takes one key point and they remember it for the rest of their life, or at least they understand the message of it. I think that's what makes a great presentation or a great speech. So it doesn't have to be I don't think you have to get a standing ovation in order to be like, wow, I did amazing. I think it's more aligns and more along the lines of where people actually feel moved and understand your message.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely going to get more into that. On this show, we talk about the strengths and needs of introverts, along with strategies for success, and we're definitely getting into that. We also bust myths. That's a big part. So, is there a myth about public speaking and or introversion in general that you want to bust today?
I think there's a couple, but one that comes to mind is that introverts can't be good leaders. I think most people think and expect that extroverts, the people that stand up there and yell and, really command the room, those are the people that make great leaders. And they are typically the people that are extroverted. So I think that's a huge myth. I don't think you have to be an extrovert to be an effective and good leader. I think on the contrary, I feel like as an introvert, you're a better leader because you have more empathy. I think you understand people better, you connect better, you feel things differently. So it's not just you. And I think that introverts are just better team players, to be honest, because again, you take out that time to understand and observe. So that's a huge myth. You do not need to be an extrovert to be a leader. You can be a great leader as an introvert.
Yeah, for sure. Introverts can make amazing leaders,
Mhm.
but there's just it might be it might look different, right? We might succeed differently than our extrovert, somebody else doing something similar as an extrovert. So, we might be more thoughtful. We're definitely good at connecting one-on-one and in small groups. So we have to use our strengths, but we can be amazing leaders. So yeah, good one. Very good. So as far as speaking goes, is it something that people are born with, or can we learn to be great speakers?
Okay, that's another myth. I don't think public speaking is a talent. It's definitely a skill. And I'm proof of that. My over 200 clients that I've worked with are proof of that. So it's definitely a skill. And the great thing is that anyone can learn it at any age. You can start early, you can start in the middle of your life, even at the end of your life. I have people that have come to me as young as 19 to as old or older than, like 60. So it's still possible at any age. And that's what tells me that it's a skill. It's a mix of things as well. A lot of it is also mindset, it's technique. A little bit of it is psychology. And I think that's what I really teach people. And that's what I don't see out there. I think most people just teach like the technical part of it, but public speaking is so complex because it really is deep and rooted in your fears and who you are as a person. So I think once you learn these three things, then that's how you can call it a skill. And it's very, very easy to learn, surprisingly.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more. What do you mean by the psychology of it?
Yeah, so before I started my business online and before it blew up and everything, I was actually doing my clinical psychology degree. So I'm very into psychology. I think it doesn't matter what field you're in, what you do, psychology is always the baseline, the most important thing in any business, in any field, in any industry. And it's because we're human beings. You're dealing with human beings. I like to joke that, we don't know what the future is going to be. Maybe we'll be lecturing or speaking in front of AI or whatnot. But for now, we're still dealing with human beings. That's why I think psychology plays such a big role. And if you just forget other people too for a second, your own psychology, the reason why you're afraid of public speaking to begin with is because there's something there, right? You have a fear. There's either a fear of failure or a fear of not being good enough or a fear of embarrassment, a fear of judgment. There's something there that's stopping you from just getting up there and speaking to the world and just being like, hey, this is what I have to say and doing it so eloquently. So that's why I think that psychology plays a huge role. And that's why I focus on psychology too when I work with my clients. And I think that's what really gives me the edge. And I think that's what helps my clients get those fast results when you start to understand where that fear is actually coming from.
Yeah. Does an example come to your mind of like a fear someone had and how you helped them overcome it?
Yes, there are so many. I think a lot of people that I work with are multicultural. So one example that I can give you, and I always remember this example because I feel like people don't realize how common this is. So most of the clients that I work with, they are people that are from a different country, born and raised in a different country, and they've moved to the States or they've moved to Canada. So I knew this one of my clients, she came in, she was Indian. So she was born and raised in India, and she was maybe like 5 or 6 years old when she moved to the United States. And she moved into a town where she was the only Indian there. So the school that she went to, she said that she was picked on a lot. And she always felt like, from then on, she always felt like she had to do extra and she had to do more to like kind of prove herself to people. Right. So when she would get up in front of a large audience, those thoughts, those feelings would all be there with her. And that's why she struggled a lot with public speaking because she felt like if I don't do this well, then I will not fit in. I will not be accepted by other people. So I think that is one great example of why that fear develops. And she carried that on with her through high school, through college, and then through work. So I think when we finally started working on it, she realized that it's almost like silly because it was so long ago. And now where she is, she's extremely successful. She started to kind of recognize all her accomplishments, and she's finally started to feel like she doesn't have to prove herself to other people to feel like she fits in. So I think that mindset shift that she had really affected the way that now like how she shows up in front of other people. So that's one of many, many examples I can give you,
Yeah.
clients that I've worked with.
And I've also heard that's a really good way to gain confidence is to keep track of your accomplishments. And that, usually this has been something for me. There's a reason why you're speaking, because you do have something to share. But I know like for me, like perfectionism can said in the past, it doesn't affect me anymore. But I basically told myself, guess what? You're not perfect. Nobody else listening to you is either. And you have a lot to share. There's a reason why you're here. And thoughts like that. So it sounds like that's what kind of worked for her is just realizing, you know what? I have some amazing things to offer and I don't need to let them stop me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So also another thing that I think is really important, and I've heard you talk about it too, is just being authentic. How does that help in giving good speeches?
Great question. So, how does being authentic help in giving great speeches? So, I think this also does boil down a little bit to psychology too. Human beings are smart. So, your audience is very smart. So, if you get up there and you pretend or fake it, or you pretend to be this ideal speaker that you in your mind think is, the greatest speaker, the thing is that it comes off as fake because it's not you. And us human beings, we pick up when something is not real or it's not genuine. You could just tell, like it might be the body language or movement or maybe something somebody says or expressions. So people can tell when you're not being yourself. And I think a big part of public speaking is connecting and building trust with your audience. So if they feel like you're not genuine, you're not building trust with them. And then half of the stuff you're going to say is just going to go over their head or they're not going to believe you. So that's why it's so important to be yourself. And you do that by bringing a little bit of little parts of your personality, little elements into the mix. For example, David, let's say someone is very funny. I'm not a funny person, so I don't try to be funny. If I had come here and tried to make jokes and be funny, like they would fall flat because it's not me. So I don't even try. But if someone is funny, I always tell them, why am I not seeing this humor when you get up and speak? I have so many clients where when I'm just talking to them one-on-one, they're hilarious. And then when it's time to present something, they're like, it's like suit and tie, like perfect reporter type of voice. And I'm like, who is this? That's not you. So as soon as they start incorporating those elements of their personality, that's when it's like, oh my gosh, it's more fun for the audience and it's more fun for you as well to kind of bring your authentic self. It's easier, you're more relaxed, you're not feeling like I'm putting on a show. It's just, hey, I'm here and I'm here to bring value. This is it. So that's why it's so important. And that's why I'm a big advocate for it. Be yourself. It's maybe a more polished version of yourself if you feel like you're too relaxed and too calm. So just a polished version of yourself is what people should be getting.
Yeah. And back to the psychology, what are your tips for someone getting to know themselves, becoming self-aware? How would you help someone that's struggling with that?
One of the best exercises I think you could do to help you see what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are is ask the people around you. And I mean people that actually genuinely love and care for you, your family, your close friends. Maybe you have a coworker or two, your bestie at work. Ask them. They will tell you, hey, this is what I love about you. You are great at listening, or you're great at understanding a concept and putting it together and executing it. And they'll tell you, like, ask them the weaknesses too. Hey, you know what? Sometimes you're really stubborn. Sometimes even if I tell you, hey, this isn't wrong, you have to do it yourself and then you get it wrong. And then you come back and say, you know what, you were right. So I think that's a great way to know yourself. And I actually did this exercise before I started my business. My business coach made me do it. And it was so eye-opening. And that is what made me realize, hey, public speaking and communication is the route I should take, because that was something everyone told me, you're really good at this. Hey, when you speak, like, this is what I love. So that's one really good way, I think. Actually, like, sit down and actually have this conversation with them and be serious about it. it doesn't have to be a game. Like tell them seriously, I need to know, what do you like about me? What do you think I'm good at? What am I bad at?
Yeah. And I like that you said, it's people that know you and care about you because
Mhm.
you can get some bad feedback out there too. So it's really important
Exactly.
to pick wisely who you're getting feedback from. I've experienced.
Absolutely.
And then I know you also talk about helping people, especially introverts, have presence. Tell us what that means and how does someone develop presence?
Presence to me is someone that walks into a room and they don't have to say anything, but people just understand kind of who you are without you having to do anything. So it's almost like your aura. So everyone has an aura. Some people have good auras, some people have bad auras, some people have, a very confused aura. So you can tell a lot about a person just by their aura. So your presence is your aura, and people have to feel your aura. So if you walk in, like I said, if you walk into a room, it's like that energy shift. And I think most of us, and this is a great thing with introverts who are really good at picking up energy. So your presence is the energy that you bring to the table without having to speak or say anything. And it's very important I don't think you develop that. A lot of us just naturally have an aura, but once you learn yourself and what you're doing, people are more inclined to pick it up then. And you can kind of control it a little bit more. If you know that, hey, this is a meeting I need to be very serious in, and I need to make a point here, you're obviously going to bring a different type of aura. You're going to there's different, I think, levels of aura. So you kind of highlight and bring the more serious aura into that meeting.
Yeah. And I think it's related to having confidence. And I always preface this with not all introverts struggle with confidence. Okay. I know some introverts that have been confident their whole lives. They're deep thinkers, and they need time to process things, but they can be very outspoken. There's others, which I think you're included. I know I'm included. I had to learn how to develop confidence, because I didn't understand my introversion, So I definitely did that. For someone that's an introvert and lacks confidence, what are some tips you have to develop confidence?
There's a lot. I think number one, I think knowledge really is power. So if you're not confident in something, learn about it. Just like public speaking. If you're not good at it, get that help you need. Learn about public speaking, practice it. That's going to give you the confidence because now you have that knowledge and now you can execute it. So I think that's one thing. And I think the other thing, a trick that I once learned and I feel like it's helped me on a more personal level is if you want to gain confidence in yourself, then like keep promises that you make to yourself. For example, if you say, I'm going to work out 5 times this week, hold yourself accountable and work out 5 times that week. You're going to feel so proud of yourself and you're going to have more confidence in yourself that I did it. Or let's go into the workplace. Let's say, if you want to feel more confident, say next time my boss offers me or asks, who wants to present this, I'll put up my hand first and say, I will do it and I will do a great job. Put up your hand, do that presentation, do a great job. You'll have more confidence in yourself because you'll know that, hey, I set myself up. I said I was going to do this and I actually did it. I think that's a really, really good way of gaining confidence in yourself because it
Yeah.
doesn't come from outside. It all comes from in here. So these little things make a huge difference.
Yeah, you brought up a couple really good points there. So first, it's like, mindset like a growth mindset. Just because maybe you haven't been successful, like in the work and in growth mindset, it's like I haven't been successful yet, but I still can be, you know?
Exactly. It's never too late. I have
Yeah.
seen, and you know what? The thing with confidence also, I've worked with a lot of people that say I was so confident in my 20s and now I'm in my 30s and I don't know what's going on. It's like going away and this and that. And then when we work together, it like comes back. So it ebbs and flows. Like you're not going to be the most confident person every single day of your life. You're going to have days where you're just feeling a little bit down, but you can bounce back from it. You will maybe even have like a few weeks of not feeling confident, but there are so many things you could do. You need to just want to have it bad enough and you will get there then.
Yeah. And then the other thing you said, put yourself out there, you know, and all the things that we're talking about today as an introvert, you can do that, but at work or wherever, take advantage of those public speaking opportunities. And they may not be perfect, But another gift we have as introverts is we're really good at reflection, you know? So we can give that speech and afterward we can think, and I always like to start with what went well, not beating myself up, but like, yeah, that went well. Next time I'm going to try this, So we're so good. That's another gift that we have, I think. I think every introvert has that is being able to be reflective.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Yeah. Another key for introverts is we have a gift for preparation and we have a need for preparation. So what do you say about that? Like what do you do to prepare or what do you help clients do to prepare for a speech?
Great question. I think, first of all, going back to preparation, I think most people don't prepare well. If you are prepared well and correctly, half of your nerves, half of that anxiety, half of that fear is gone right away because you know what you're doing. So I think most people just don't know how to prepare correctly. They think, hey, let me just put together a presentation or the speech and I'll just go there and rehearse once or twice. I don't think that's enough, especially if you have a fear of public speaking. So something that I personally love helping my clients with, and I do this early on in our first or second coaching call, is I help them prepare something I created that's called skeleton notes. So it's a very perfectly formatted way of how you basically, it's like a brain dump, but a very organized brain dump. So I have a specific formatting that I make people follow. Hey, have these bullet points here, highlight this, do that. And what that basically serves as is a way for you to be able to remember everything, put it into good structure, take everything out of your mind. So when you're actually speaking, there's room in there for you to think and to be able to expand anytime you need to. So I think it's called skeleton notes. I'd love to get into in more deep detail, but it's basically just the way that you prepare, whether it's a speech, a presentation, a 5-minute meeting. I always tell my clients, did you create your skeleton notes? Let's see your skeleton notes. Let's take a look at them. And then another thing that they're really good for is if you go blank, you have to have something to refer to because when you go blank, no matter how prepared you are, if your nerves take over, you might go blank. At least you'll have your skeleton notes to take a look at. So preparation is key, but it's also doing it the right way that makes a huge difference as well. I'm going to give you an example, actually, David. I had a client that I worked with one-on-one. He's a business owner. So he went to a conference and he's very funny. He's actually hilarious, but he went to a conference and he didn't realize that he was supposed to do a speech. So there were 20 people that were supposed to do a speech and it was a competition. So he's like, oh crap. Someone asked him, oh, what are you talking about during your speech? He's like, a speech? What do you mean? So he was like, I remembered what you taught me. He's like, I had like 15 minutes. He's like, I sat down, I wrote my skeleton notes. He's like, I did the speech and he actually won the best speech award that night. So I have a picture of him on my LinkedIn. He sent me a photo with his trophy and he's like, I cannot believe this happened. But that's how effective preparing correctly it really is. So that's what I kind of teach my clients. I like saving time. I don't like spending too much time on things. So if you do it efficiently, if you do it correctly, you're also going to get good results. So preparation is definitely key, but doing it the right way.
Yeah, I love that story. So it's like obviously it would have been better if he would have even prepared earlier and all that good stuff. But just the fact that he took the time right before is better. Because, let's be honest, thinking on our feet isn't our superpower. It's the preparation. And even just him articulating, formulating his thoughts even just a little bit before made it effective for him. Again, it would probably been better if he was more if he had known and done more, but just the fact that he just didn't stand up there without thinking first made it a great speech, right?
Exactly.
Do you think the preparation is different between introverts and extroverts?
Yes. I think extroverts, from what I've seen, I think they don't prepare enough. I think they have, and you know what? It's great. I'm never going to say that it's bad to be an extrovert. They just operate differently and it works for them. That's the great thing. Us introverts, we just have to work differently. So I think extroverts, they're very good at thinking on the spot. They are very good at just putting things together and okay, they'll spend like that 1 hour. All right, let me get up there. I'm just going to do my thing. I know what to say. And they do great. That's great for extroverts, right? Us introverts, we unfortunately cannot do that. We have to sit there and read and okay, I'm going to do this and rehearse and practice. So that's when I come in and really help introverts like figure out how to do all of that, yet still get up there and shine and not be so in your head all the time. so that you can actually, leave an impact on your audience. So yeah, totally different.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. We're not bashing extroverts. It's just different. I love how you said that. It's just different. And I've worked with many, I've co-presented with a good friend of mine who's an extrovert, and she was just better at winging it than I am. And and
Really?
I could be jealous and think, well, why can't I be more like her? Or I could, do the preparation that I've learned that I need and, do well.
Yeah, exactly. It's different, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. But again, and I've heard this, from people like yourself or other people that work around a lot of public speakers, that a lot of public speakers are introverts. And it's we have a lot to say because we're always thinking, but we
Hmm.
need to understand how we prepare. And I think that another important component of it is how we manage our energy. So, how do you yourself manage your energy around speeches or presentations and, or how do you help clients with that, being an introvert?
Yeah, again, great question. So, because we're so low on energy, or we have most energy in the morning and it kind of depletes as we go on. So, I think what we as introverts need to do is we have to prioritize our time. You have to organize your time. And this is something I was very bad at. That's why even today, like we rescheduled this and I was like, okay, tomorrow I have so many meetings. I'm going to be drained. I'm not going to bring my best foot forward. So let's move this to today because I know today I have more energy. I'm not as, I haven't been interacting as much with people. So I know I'd be able to bring my A game. So being able to prioritize, schedule everything accordingly, always know you're going to have more energy in the morning. As the day goes on, it's going to be less and less. So prioritize things that are important earlier in the week as well. Because I think as the week goes, you get more and more tired. So Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, put all your important meetings, everything on there, and then take it easy the rest of the days. I think that helps. Sleep, I think, is just, if anyone knows me, like I can sleep 12 hours. If I've had a rough day, I will sleep 12 hours because that's what we use to recharge, right? Alone time is important for us to recharge. So recharge either through sleep, being alone, get that battery. Think of it as a battery. You're a battery and you need to like be plugged in and you need to like, recharge so you perform better the next day. So I think these small things make a huge difference. It took me a long time to figure this out because I was just like, why am I always tired? Why am I like brain dead? Why can't I focus on this conversation? These things make a huge difference. Once you know yourself, you can then organize things in a way in your life that you can still do great at everything and still not feel so drained and dead by the end of it. So I
Yeah.
think it's a big one.
Yeah, an important part of that is not comparing yourself because, again, when I was presenting with a friend of mine, I would notice that, you know what, I love that we had such a good time. Now I'm ready to take a break. And she was ready to give the next speech, and it
Mm,
charged her up. And and again, it's just
exactly.
different. It's just different. So, plan the downtime afterward or, I call it pre-charging, the pre-charging ahead of time. For these podcasts, I have an hour before and an hour after, and that's not negotiable. That's just how I do it because I want to be my best, for you and for other people. And if I need to take a break afterward, it's planned into this.
Exactly. Yep. Makes sense.
Maria, another important piece that's helped me is just learning to bring storytelling into it all. So, what's the impact of storytelling in an effective speech?
Oh my gosh. I love that you brought up storytelling. I have a whole module, a whole section where I just teach my clients storytelling. Storytelling is such a powerful tool in your speech, your presentation, even just when you're speaking to someone. And let me tell you my own story with this and how I experienced it. So when I first started posting on LinkedIn, I was giving lots of tips. It was very educational, some practical content, things like that. It wasn't until I shared my personal story and why I do what I do that I didn't, I didn't get traction. So when I shared my story, I got 2 million views within 2 days. And
Oh,
it's because
wow.
yeah, it went crazy viral because people, again, love stories. That's how powerful it is. And if you look at all platforms, not just LinkedIn, if you look at YouTube, there's always a trend going on story time of when I did this, or even TikTok right now, you'll see girls doing their makeup and say, hey, story time for when I won so-and-so award or whatever it is. People love stories. They want to know. It's because it creates mystery, it creates anticipation. So, and it's a journey, and people like being taken on journeys. That's why it's so important. So now, how do you translate this into the corporate world? So I'll give you an example. Let's say you're doing a presentation and you have to talk about statistics. Instead of just saying, this is the growth that we've had this year in revenue, say, if you reframe it and turn this into a story, this is the growth that we had in revenue in the past year. Here is how we got there. Last year, et cetera, et cetera. Like now you're telling a story. People will be invested in that. And people remember stories. That's why there's so many kid stories and there's always a lesson. People might forget your entire speech, your entire presentation, but they will remember a well-told story. And if you can leave them with just that, a story that they will remember that has a really impactful lesson, I think you've done your job as a speaker.
Yeah, and that's something I had to learn because I think the message was kind of like, you just talked about statistics, share the facts. That's what you need to do. And it's not as impactful. We're built on stories, from the beginning of time. Human beings, we're storytellers. But I think that
Exactly.
sometimes we feel like that people don't want to hear our stories for whatever reason. And I've just learned that it's just so important. And I know it's made me a better presenter and speaker.
I think it's also a way of telling stories. People love hearing stories. People don't like telling stories because they don't know how. So that's why when I'm working with my clients, I have a whole format. And just to kind of give you a simple idea of how to tell a good story, always start with a time frame. Back in 2002, for example, or when I was 5 years old, or when the company just launched in 1995, start with a timestamp so you can take people mentally to that time and then always build on the character. There has to be that struggle. So let's say we're talking about a company. What was the company struggling through? Who are the key players? What was happening? You really have to talk about that struggle to bring that character to life. Even that company, maybe the company is the main character. Bring that character to life. People have to feel for them. And then you get into the details. And then lastly, it's something that's very important for a story, having a lesson. I'm telling you this today because X, Y, and Z. That's just the simplest way of telling a story. And that's what I did when I told my story on LinkedIn. And I've had so many of my clients tell their stories that way during interviews, during presentations. And even some people went on to like create content on LinkedIn and they said they saw a huge difference in the level of engagement and what people liked. So very simple, easy to do.
Yeah, and as you were talking about, talk about the struggle. Just think about your favorite movie. That's what the movie is based on. There's a character and they're going through a journey and they're struggling and
There's a
you know, br
problem that needs to be solved.
yeah, bring the same thing into your speeches and your communication and your public speaking. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Mhm.
All right, one last question for you, Maria. So, do you have any tips as far as just online presenting and speaking, like we're doing now?
Yes. So the world has changed so much. More and more people, especially in the future, I'm seeing that there will be more online presentations, more online speeches and whatnot. So it's a very different ballgame than when you're in person. In person, it's very easy for people to pick up your energy. They see all of you, so they're reading your entire body language. So when it comes to online, you have to work with what you've got, right? Number one, having like always remember this little screen, like what are people seeing? This is what people see right now. So you always want to position yourself in a way that you're in the center and you have enough space up here and you have enough space for body language so people can see your hand movements and your hand gestures. So make sure that you're utilizing the space that you have. Second thing is audio. Online audio matters a lot more than in person. People hear you clearly and crisp in person. A lot of people don't have good mics. So invest in a good mic, especially if you're going to do a lot of online presentations. Second thing is lighting. People need to see you in order to pay attention to you online. There's so many distractions. Think about it. I have a window here, I have my phone here, my dog's right there. There's so many distractions. So if I can't see you, I'm focusing on other things. So make sure your lighting is good. And the best thing to do is have natural lighting and something like this. Like if I showed you the difference, if I turn this light off, you see that difference? Like
Yeah.
have good lighting, brighten up that screen so people can see you well. So I think these two things are super important. Good mic, good audio, good visual so people can see you. Focus on your background too. What's in your background? Everything you see right now is telling you something about me, right? There's a picture of my dog, a picture of my siblings traveling. I love traveling. That's why I have a globe. Everything here is telling you something about me. So focus on your background. Don't let it just be simple. Bring some character into it. I think subconsciously, again, human beings are picking up on that, going back to psychology. So that's very important too. I can go on, but last thing I would say is learn how to engage people online too. In person, it's very easy. Hey, put up your hand if you feel this way, and you'll get that engagement. But online now, it's like, hey, let me know in the chat box if you agree. I have my chat box open. I'd love to see your answers. So you need to get people to engage, and you have to kind of guide them and tell them how to do it. So these are just some of the things. There's a lot more you could do, but it is a different ball game. You have to pay attention to all of these things online. It's a little bit more work, but it's just as effective if you know what you're doing. I hope
Yeah.
that answers your question.
No, those are great tips, and people, it's not always intuitive. Like, you do see the person that's just kind of peeking over the wall, or they look like they're in the witness protection program because their lighting is so bad. So, yeah, great tips. Maria, I've enjoyed this conversation thoroughly. And again, introverts can be amazing public speakers, but you got to learn your strengths as an introvert, what you need, like in preparation, and what you need, like managing your energy. So, this has been a very great conversation. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I think the last words that I would want to leave people with is to not give up on yourself. I think a lot of people just feel like that person is doing great. Like we naturally compare ourselves and we feel like we can never be like them. Let me tell you from someone that always felt that way. I was always like, how is this person doing that? That's so amazing. I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to be able to do that. If you just believe in yourself, and I know it's so cliche, but if you actually believe in yourself, like that is what's going to get you there. And I'm a prime example because I started from scratch. I started from nothing. And if someone like me, who's introverted, who is very quiet, very shy, who really struggled in the corporate world, if I could make it this far, then trust me, anyone can. You just have to have that persistence and that confidence in yourself. Even if you don't have confidence, do it. Because right now, sometimes when I go back and look at my videos, I'm like, oh my God, my first video, I was like, ah, I need to delete this. This is horrible. Or what am I even saying? That doesn't even make sense. So you get better with time. So if you have that goal, just take that first step. Everything else will come after. Everything, I promise you, will come after because you learn as you go. You'll never be 100% ready when you start. Just start. If you have that goal, take that first step and you will figure it out as you go. So
Yeah,
that's kind of what I would want to say.
well said. Well said. And then, of course, where can people find out more about the great work that you do?
I hang out on LinkedIn 24/7. So Maria Malik on LinkedIn, that's where I post. DM me. I always look at my DMs and I try to respond. If you've enjoyed this, if anything stood out to you, let me know what did. It's always good to get feedback, especially learn what message resonated with you. So definitely LinkedIn.
Yeah, and I will attest that you put some great stuff out on LinkedIn. So,
Thank you. It's actually my filming day, so I'm getting ready to film content for the next month. So
oh,
I'm excited.
very cool. Very cool. Thanks again, Maria.
Of course, great talking to you, David. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to further connecting with you. Reach out at david@quietandstrong.com or check out the quietandstrong.com website, which includes blog posts and links to social media channels. Send me topics or guests you would like to see on the show. If you're interested in getting to know yourself better, there's now a free Type Finder personality assessment on the Quiet and Strong website. This free assessment will give you a brief report, including the 4-letter Myers-Briggs code, and you can also have the option of purchasing the full report if you'd like to learn more. I'll add a link to the show notes. So many great things about being an introvert, and we need those to be understood. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong.